Hello, frequent flower friends. It is Sarah LaBoo at Main Street Florist, and today we're going to play with some flowers that you got this month. You are getting some beautifully scented stock. Now, your colors may be different than this. Stock is one of the scents that if I could bottle it up, I think I could sell it for millions. It is the best smelling flower there is. They're part of the turnip family, so they have a little bit of a spice to them, but oh, it just smells so good. And when we have it here in the store, you can smell it immediately. Definitely one of my favorite scented flowers. So you have stock that you're working with, and then you also have Alstroemeria. Again, your colors may vary from what I have here today. Alstroemeria looks like a miniature lily, even has pollen like a miniature lily, can sometimes be called Proverian lily, but they are not actually in the lily family. Why do we call it that? Why is the name that? I'm not sure. I think it was named that for its look, but not for its actual family that it originates from. So if you're concerned about pets and toxicity to cats and dogs, Alstroemeria is not toxic. It's not toxic like a lily. Now, keep in mind, if you have curious pets, any type of plant or flower or foliage that they eat, if they eat enough of it, is going to cause an upset stomach. So just be aware of that. If you've got curious pets, but they are not toxic to cats and dogs, like a traditional lily can be. Today, I am going to just show you kind of a simple, creative way you can play with your flowers. This might be a little bit out of your comfort zone when you're designing at home, but I want to be able to show you different things you can do with your flowers. So a lot of our videos are very sort of straightforward, how to arrange them in a vase. Today, we're going to stretch it a little bit and make you be a little bit more creative. I am going to be working with some bud vases. I figure this is something a lot of people have at home. If not, hit up any thrift store. There'll be shelves and shelves of them. What I chose was just 3 bud vases. They could be all the same. They could be all different. I do want them to be similar in height. So whether you choose like 3 low ones or 3 tall ones, we want them to be similar in height. I'm also going to show you how we as florists like to play with this product. This is called aluminum wire. It comes in a lot of different colors, and it's something where we can just add some fun decorative elements to it. We do sell this at the shop. We have multiple colors, and you can buy it by the foot like you would ribbon. If it's of interest to you to take a little bit of home to play with, I encourage you to. What you're also going to need if you're playing with the wire are some wire cutters. And then if you have a needle nose plier, or better yet, if you have jewelry pliers, it's really helpful to kind of create some of the shapes we're going to do. What we've started with is our 3 vases. I have got water in there with flower food. And we are going to create a decorative element, almost an armature. Armature meaning a structure that's going to support our flowers that are going to unite these 3 vases, and then we'll place our flowers. I cut a pretty long length, I'd say maybe 2 yards, 1.5 yards of this wire, and I have coiled it up. I went from each end and basically started with, we'll do a mini version. So I've already started on this side. I'm going to start on the other side, and I'm taking the end and just turning it under. This is where your needle nose pliers or jewelry pliers are going to come in handy. And you're going to fold it in, and you're just going to start to create a coil. The jewelry pliers are nice because when you grip the wire, it's not going to leave little teeth marks. Sometimes I like to get it started and then just work it with my hands to start to create that loop. This one earlier, I was playing with it. I didn't make it really tight. So we've kind of got what looks like a little funny pair of eyeglasses. I'm going to twist this. So one's going one direction, one's going the other, and then coil them in a little bit more. So it looks like I've got sort of a fancy S. From here, what I can do is then start to push out these coils and flip them in opposite directions to make an interesting little shape. So see that? And you can stretch it out a little bit You could keep it tight. Now, what we're going to create is sort of a giant version to connect our vases, but then we could even use these little versions to add some decorative elements to our vases. So I've already started a pretty large one here. I'm honestly not sure how large it's going to be. So this is an experiment for both of us. All right, so see how I've got my big coils. All right, now I'm gonna start to flip. And when I'm choosing coils to flip out, I'm not being too particular, but I'm probably leaving about 2 loops so that there's some thickness. 2 there, 2 there. This is really satisfying to play with, to see how that's working. And what we're gonna do is kind of create this armature. So there's one side down. Let's flip out the other side. Okay, so it's not exact symmetry on each side, but that's okay. So now I'm going to play with this. It's very malleable. So now I'm going to play with this to go around my vases. I might actually try to make some of these loops big enough that I can put it right around the top of the vase. Yep, I like that. We're going to have to figure out a way to make that stay in place. That went right down the middle there. Okay. Now my idea is to take some of these littler ones I made and kind of clamp that armature into place. So you might have to play with it just a little bit to position it exactly how you want it. You could stretch out these end pieces. You could curl them up. You could curl them down. Okay, so that just gives us some visual interest and something that you can play with at home. I am sure if you go to a craft store, you could find you'd probably find wire like this, but you could also find other mechanics that you could do the same thing with. If you're into making jewelry and you have jewelry pliers, there's lots of different gauges of jewelry wire that you could do something very similar with. All right, let's move on to the flowers. So you should have, in the 10 stem bouquet, you should have 5 stems of the stock and 3 stems of the Alstroemeria. So let's talk about processing these flowers. With Alstroemeria, we want to remove any of these lower leaves. They typically are the first to look sad. And I like to edit these on top too, just because I want to see more of the flower and less of the foliage. And these are super long lasting. So Alstroemeria sometimes can last up to 2.5 weeks. But like I said, the greenery is going to start to look sad long before that. So by taking off the greenery, we're just saving some trouble later of them looking sad too soon. Alstroemeria is one that sometimes can be an irritation to skin. If you have very sensitive skin, you may want to use gloves when working with it. So we're going to clean all those stems. Okay, now we're going to start with our stalk. Same thing, we can get rid of all of these leaves. They're not necessary. Also, we want all of the water and energy to go to the blooms. Now, linear flowers like stalk bloom from the bottom up. Often these very top blooms will never really open. But if you notice some of your bottom ones looking sad, that's because they were the first ones to open. They've already matured and started to fade. You can definitely just remove any of those blooms and still have a beautiful stem to work with. I'm going to start with my line flowers. I'm going to start with the stalk. And really, there is no rhyme or reason to how I'm doing this arrangement. I'm going to try to make mine feel a little balanced, but you do what feels right for you. So I am going to give a little bit of height in the center, and I'm going to group 2 of them together. Then I'm going to take my 2 others on the side. Actually, maybe that center vase, we're going to group 3. We're going to see if my bud vase is wide enough to hold 3 of them. It is. I think this would be a fun tablescape to make if you've got a long rectangular table. Maybe you've got a little bar area or a bar ledge in your kitchen that you could put these on during a dinner party, or just because you want to feel fancy, do that too. All right, the Alstroemeria, I'm actually going to keep kind of low in my vase. And I'm going to be mindful, if this is going to be a centerpiece, that I want to have those flowers showing up on front and back. My vase is getting a little tight there. All right, there is our simple arrangement with our stalk and our Alstroemeria. Now, if we want to elevate it even more, maybe you've got a table where you can certainly give it some height. Go outside. It's a perfect time to trim some branches. You might even have a little bit of greenery growing on them now that it finally is starting to feel like spring. I have got some curly willow branches. And I'm just going to add a little bit of height and visual interest to my little vases. I've got kind of a crazy one this way. I kind of want to do the same over here. All right, there we go, guys. Now this is something, if you had little butterflies or dragonflies, you could add them in here, but just a fun way to think about what you can do with your simple 10-stem bouquet. Sorry, I'm like playing peekaboo between the branches here. But a 10-stem bouquet of our Frequent Flower subscription can go a long way, and just by adding some visual interest with our vases and with the wire and the branches, we've really taken that from just being what could be just like a simple everyday arrangement into something that could be the highlight of your dinner party. Thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next month.